Well, welcome to this video on object-oriented basics. In this video, we're going to take a look at creating a class, adding attributes and methods, instantiating that class into an object, and then we're going to discuss about code design, good code design with OO principles. The first thing that you need to do is to make sure that you've got Visual Studio installed with the Python extension, and once you have done that, you're ready to go. So you can see here I've got Visual Studio Code open, and I'm going to now open a new file, and I'm going to make sure that I have a Python file ready to go. All right, the next thing that I need to do is to create a class. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. So in Python, believe it or not, the easiest way to create a class is just simply using the word class and then the name of the class. So what we're going to be doing throughout these video tutorials is using our analogy that we have talked through in class about the human class. So we're going to be following this pretty much to the T. All right, so we're going to create a new class called human. Now, in this sort of video series, what I'd like you to do is make sure that you pause the video at certain points and make sure that you get up to speed with the code that's on the screen. So please pause the video now and make sure you've quickly added a class. So the next thing is we're going to create an object with attributes. Now the first thing that we need to do is we need to distinguish, well, what's attributes and what's methods. And the best way to do that, I think, clearly for other people to see your code is just to use a comment, just to say, well, underneath here is going to be some attributes, and underneath this code comment will be some methods. And it's just good programming practice to do so. The next thing that we're going to take a look at is what we call a constructor. Now, this is where we will be placing our attributes. So to build a constructor in Python, you just type def init, and if you select the IntelliSense that pops up, you'll see that it kind of creates the scaffold code for a default constructor. Now, I am just going to remove these little arguments here, but essentially what's on the screen now is the default constructor. Now, what is a constructor, you might ask? Well, a constructor is a thing that we use in object-oriented to instantiate an object. So what's happening here is when a new object is being born, being created, it will then pass through the constructor. So that's why we have a reference to self. Now, self is just a reference to the object that's being called upon. So hypothetically, let's say we have a new human, for example. We've called it human1. We've created a new object. Well, then what's going to happen is that version of that class, that object human1, will be passed through the constructor. And we're going to initialize name, age, weight, gender, specifically for that object. So it might be John is the name, age is 1, the weight is 5 kilos, and so forth. And so what the constructor does is it allows you to initialize the object's values. So this is where we're going to place the attributes. So when we are creating new attributes, we're going to follow exactly what's on this slide here, except for these methods. We're just going to follow these attributes for the moment, add a few little more ones as well. In Python, we need to reference it with the object that we are referencing. So it's going to always to be self dot. So for example, self dot name. And I'm just going to say, well, when a new object gets created, we're just going to give it a blank name. All right. And then we've got self dot height, self dot weight, and so forth. And the last one we're going to add is the date of birth. It's convention in Python to make your attributes lowercase. So in this case, please make your attributes lowercase. So pause the video now and get these attributes down in your code. All right, we're now moving on to the third step. And we're going to create an instance of this class. We're going to create an object out of this class. So what we need to do is we actually need to have some driver code that drives and creates new objects. So this is outside of the class. So notice how the indentation, I'm not inside the class, I'm outside it. So I'm going to create a new section, which is like often called like a driver or a main program or a main line. And this is where we're going to run when we create new objects. And what we can do is eventually we can abstract the class away by hiding it like that. And so really all we need to do is create objects and use attributes and methods. We don't actually need to know the underlying logic of how it all works. And that's abstraction. That's the beauty of abstraction. And that is one of the key principles of object-oriented programming. So pretty simple to set up a new object. You give it a name. So in this one, I'm just going to call it human1. And then you reference the class, human. And then you just put your parentheses around it to indicate that we are referencing that human class and we're going to create a new object. All right, once we've done that, that object is now instantiated with these default values, okay? Once that line of code is run, human1 goes through the constructor, all right, so pretend that's human1, and we've set up all these blank values. So human1 is currently blank. So what we need to do is now update these values with its proper attributes. So for example, human1.name, I'm going to now change it to be my son's name. All right. Now the next bit of data that you're seeing is actually real life data. This is his actual weight and height at his point of birth. So the next one is human1 dot, and you can see here IntelliSense has picked up all these attributes here. And a cool thing for you to know is that the blue symbol here is indicating, well, these are variables, okay, or attributes that you can use out of this class. So I'm going to say, well, I'm going to make his height equal to 51 centimeters. Just put a numerical value there. I'll change his weight to be his actual birth weight, which was 4.03. His age at birth, well, you guessed it, 0. And his gender was, he was a male. And date of birth, I'm just going to put a fictitious date of birth here. And there we go. So, if I ran this and ran this code, everything should work. And in fact, let's give that a go. Firstly, before I run this, I want you to pause the video, and I want you to write this driver code down. All right, so I want to output this. Sorry, I want to compile this now, and so I need to firstly save this. So I might just save this on my desktop just for the purposes of this. I'm just going to call this OOBasics. And I'm going to now run this. And you can see in my terminal, it's run the program. But you might be asking, well, what does the program do? Well, the program does exactly what it's been written as, and it's instantiated an object called Tobias, or human1, sorry. And it has populated all the attributes. But we're currently not outputting. So how do we output? Well, there's a couple of ways to do this, and we'll evolve throughout the video. But the first thing that you can do is simply use the print command in Python, and I'm using string interpolation here just to make it a lot easier. But essentially what we can do is we can say, well, name is equal to human1.name. Okay, so you can see here string interpolation. If I use my curly braces, I'm now referencing a variable that exists in this program, and anything that doesn't have those curly braces is just going to be printed out to the screen. So if I printed this right now or ran this program, you can see here that it's going to print out the name Tobias John Paul Jakes. So if I wanted to add the next one, I could add a comma and I could say, well, the next attribute is the height, for example. And then I use my string interpolation and I go human1.height. And I print that out. Now I have the height as well. And in fact, I might want to put that in centimeters after it, and it's a lot better. So what I'd like you to do now is to keep going with this pattern and fill out all these attributes and print them out to the screen. And once you've done that, unpause the video. All right, so you may have noticed that I made a little mistake and I said gender twice. I populated that attribute. It's actually D of B. But you can now see that I've printed this to the screen and all the attributes are there. Look, there are some other ways to print a list of attributes that exist in an object. Now, what we need to do is we need to import a particular library to do this. So up the top here, just above the class, we're going to use a special library called ppprint, and it allows us to print attributes from a class super easily. So if I use ppprint, I'm going to import it. And then what I could do is I can just use a simple loop. Actually, no, I don't even need to use a loop. I could just go using ppprint. I want to pit all the variables or the attributes from the human one from human one. And so if I run this code, you can see here it will print out all the attributes in this manner of fashion. Of course, there are other ways we can do this as well. We could potentially loop this. So I could say for attributes in the directory of human one. Now, basically saying, well, let's have a look at all the attributes in human one, and we're going to print the attributes or each single attribute, and we're going to get them from our human one class, and we're going to print them out. So that is the other way we can do it. Now, what it also comes with is a bunch of other bits and pieces in the, it also comes with all these other bits and pieces. So you may not want to show all that information, but this is pretty cool because what it's showing you is where all this particular data is stored in the memory of your computer. But just for this particular exercise, let's just comment these out and let's stick with our simple one that's easy to understand. All right, so now we're moving on to the next part where we've created attributes. We're now going to create methods for our class. Now, as I said, we want to distinguish methods and attributes with our code commenting. We've done that. We want to make sure our indentation is right as well. And creating a method is very similar to creating a function in Python. So you would just simply use the word def and then create a name for the method. Lowercase is the convention, snake case, or what we call this, with underscores to separate spaces in words. So increase age, increase underscore age. Now we've created our method, but remember we need to pass through the object. So we always have to put self through it. Otherwise, if you don't do that, when you instantiate an object, it's not going to go through the method and do what it needs to do. It won't work. So this one's a really easy method to write. Increase age. Every time we run this, we want to increase the age by 1. So we can just go self.age plus equals 1. All right. So then if we wanted to run this, it's pretty easy. All we would do is we would, just after we print it, I'm going to go human1.age, human1.increase age, and put my parentheses there to indicate that's a method. Now, if I run this, it's not going to print it out, so I'm going to need to copy this just to see the difference. All right, so I'm going to run that, and you can see here now that once I've increased my age, you can see down the bottom here, it's turned it up by 1. So there you go. There's a simple way to write a method and the power of methods in OO. Please pause this video and write this code. And once you've finished that, then unpause the video. All right, so you can see here that we haven't really conformed to the best programming principles. Why? We're copying and pasting lines of code and repeating and duplicating. So we want to avoid the copying and pasting and the duplication of code. The reason why, it's messier, it will take longer to maintain. So for example, if I needed to make a small change on this, I need to do it for all the ones that I've copied and pasted. So instead, what we'll do is we'll self-contain this print little task inside the object itself, which is much cleaner, and it actually conforms to the rules of object-oriented programming, which we'll learn about in future lessons. So we'll just create a separate one called print all attributes. Separate method, should I say. Print all attributes. So what we can now do is we can copy and paste or cut this and just stick it in here. Now, the problem is if we ran this, it's referencing the specific object, human1, not the generic class. So if I was to create a human2 object, why? Because it's only going to work if I call it human1. So what do we do? We make it generic. We generalize. All right, so now we have created this. I should be able to reference this method. So it should be print all attributes. And you can see it's working now. And if I needed to run that again, pretty easy. And you can see it works. So where possible, we want to be avoiding duplication of code. And if it's OO, we want to be able to be adding it inside the object itself or inside the class. So that so everything's self-contained inside there. All right, I want to introduce to you some more use cases, more functionality for methods. Let's just say we wanted to increase the age of the human when it was their birthday, for example. So we could add a bit of logic inside this this method that does that. So we could say, look, if the human .dob is equal to, now in Python, I've done a little bit of looking. I wasn't sure what to do. If that's you do a bit of a Google. You go, well, or ChatGPT, how do I get today's date? Well, today's date is date.today. Now, if you realized that, you'd be like, hang on, wait. Sorry, I need to just make that self.dob. You'll see that there is an underline here, date is not defined. If you had used date before, you realize that you'll need to import date. So you'll go from date time, we're going to import the date. And then magically, once we've included that beautiful library in, we'll see, oh, I need to add a little thing here, that little squiggly line goes away. So we could add some sort of condition and go, if the date of birth is equal to today's date, then I'm going to increase the age. So I'll go human1.age plus equals 1. So if I ran this now, oh, it's not working. Well, why isn't it working? Well, that's a really good question. Well, firstly, today's date is not the date of birth. But let's say if I changed it, for example, to today's date, right, which is the 23rd of January, it still doesn't work. So what's the best way to troubleshoot this if you do get sort of stuck? Well, the best thing to do in this case is using print statements and to actually see what's happening behind the scenes. I'm just going to firstly print what's self's DOB, and I'm going to print what's coming out when I do today's date. And if I have a look, I'll have a look to see that, well, my format is like this. But the way it's being formatted is like this. Firstly, we don't need the year. We can just chop that off. And secondly, we need to get it into this particular format. How do I find this information out? Well, what I've done is you can go straight to the Python library, straight to the documentation, and you can see here how to find information. Was that firstly to get it into the format that I wanted, I needed to add this here so you can see it. This particular function or method, and then I needed to pass it a parameter of, hey, what I want is I just want you to show the date and the month in this kind of order. So date first, then month like this, and it's going to format the time as a string like this. That's what this string format time means. And you need to, and I say you need to format it like this. So now if I run this, it's getting much closer to the format we want. In fact, it's in the format we want. So then we need to chop off our part of the string, the year part of the string, and that slash. Now, if you remember from any of the Python courses, you can easily do that by using the, so on the string itself, using the rectangular brackets or the brackets, and just using, I want the start, colon, to the 5th character of the string. So I want the 2, the 3, the slash, the 0, and the 1. So that's 5. All right, run that again. And now I've got them in the exact same format. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll copy that, then I'll copy this, and I'll get rid of my print statements. They've been really useful. Thank you very much. Run this again, and you can now see that because it's today's date, Tobias's birthday, age increases by 1. Okay, little bit of logic. If I changed his date to tomorrow, it wouldn't change it. Again, just seeing what you can do with methods, very powerful. The last thing that I wanted to show you, sorry, if you haven't got that down, make sure you pause the video. So the last thing that I wanted to show you was a bit of formatting of your console, specifically your text colors. So what I'm going to suggest to you is to use Colorama. If you don't have Colorama installed, or it doesn't work when you import the library in, you can go to the Colorama website and follow the instructions on how to install Colorama. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the library. So I'm going to say from Colorama, I want to import a few things. I want to be able to change the foreground color of text. So I want to import the for library. Sometimes I want to be highlighting the back of the text, so I want the background, and I want to be able to style it like bolding and all that kind of stuff. So they're the 3 things that I want. And so Colorama is super easy to use. So let's say I want to make the name blue, and I wanted to make the text yellow. Yellow, for example. So what I can do here is I can use my curly braces, and I can reference the library that's just been imported for, and you can see here when I've got dot, these are all the colors that I can use. So I'm just going to go red, and what that's going to do is anything after this, it's going to change it to red. So if I do this again, it's now all red. If I wanted to then say, well, I want the attribute to be yellow, I can go for dot yellow, and then you can see now everything after is yellow, but the placeholder text name is red, and that is yellow. So you would just continue in fact, and then you can just do this as well. For.reset. If I run that again, that will then change everything back to the default color. But what I would like you to do is just to format this so that you've got the placeholder text as red and then the attributes data as yellow. So if you can pause the video, follow this simple kind of formula and neaten it up like that. And that is Colorama, and you can play around with back.yellow and style as well. All right, so in this video, we've covered quite a few concepts. We've covered the ability to create a class. We've covered the ability to create an object with attributes firstly. We've then created a driver to instantiate that object and populated the attributes. We've then outputted that information to the screen using different methods, finally settling on the fact that, hey, we want to print all our attributes inside our object using a print all attributes method. We then obviously created methods, increase age and print all attributes. And we haven't even created a second one yet, but you could easily create a second object, second human. So human2 equals a new human, and then start populating all the information there. And then we finally discussed some added method functionality into our methods, and we finished off with Colorama just to spice things up a little bit. So once you've done all that, make sure you save this because in our next lesson, we're going to use this to then learn more about encapsulation.